Principal has long been a leading corporate partner in so many quality of life initiatives throughout our state, throughout the central Iowa region where you're obviously headquartered.
And I've learned over and over again that if you're not authentic and doing it, what works for you, it's not going to be successful.
Welcome, everybody, back to another season of the Iowa BizCast web series, where we interview members of the Iowa Business Council and talk about the great things that Iowa Business Council members are doing for communities across the state of Iowa, for all of our economy, for all of our different communities across the state. And we're thrilled to welcome Deanna Strable to the Iowa BizCast. Deanna is the chair of the board, the president, and the chief executive officer of Principal Financial Group. She joined the company in 1990 as an actuarial assistant. She's a native of Iowa, but she received her bachelor's degree from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. And I should note that she became a member of the Iowa Business Council just last summer. So Deanna, welcome to the Iowa BizCast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Joe.
Deanna, let's first level set on Principal Financial Group as a company. A couple of quick notes. Principal has been around for 146 years and counting. You employ more than 19,000 people worldwide, and you have about 6,200 people here in Iowa. If asked, what would you want people to know about Principal and its culture and its history, what would you say?
Yeah, there's so much there that I'm so proud of. I think we started as a Iowa-focused life insurance company, and many people here locally think of us as a life insurance company, but we're much more than that. We've morphed to really a global diversified financial services company. We serve 75 million customers around the globe, ultimately have more customers outside of the US than we do here in the US, and really go to market around our three main businesses, whether that be retirement, whether that be employee benefits and insurance, or whether that be global asset management. So from a business perspective, we have transitioned and grown to be a global 250 company, Fortune 500 company. We went public in 2001 and ultimately are listed on the NASDAQ and about a $21 billion market cap. But really what we do comes down to what we do for our employees, what we do for our customers, a huge sense of purpose, a huge sense of integrity. We're an active participant in all the communities in which we operate. We think that's part of our obligation, but it also helps us attract and retain top talent. And when we think about our culture, I really do think it's our superpower. It's how we are here for our employees, how we attract them, retain them, develop them, move them around the organization and offer different career opportunities. And one of the things I'm most proud of is we've been an inclusive culture, really focused on being there and recognizing how differences help make us better, and how can we ultimately have smarter teams that are making smarter decisions for our customers each and every day.
That's great. And we'll come back to some of those themes in a second. But let me ask you this. I think it's safe to say that Principal is one of the most recognizable financial services brands. And I think some might be surprised to find out that the company is headquartered in Iowa. What makes Iowa competitive to grow as a Fortune 500 company?
Yeah, our global headquarters is here in Des Moines, and it's definitely a commitment for us as we go forward. And I think it comes down to a few things. I first think it comes down to it's a great pool of talent. And ultimately has allowed us to attract and retain talent that have strong work ethics, love to come to work every day and solve tough problems for our customers, and really grounded in doing what's right every day for our customers. As you know, Joe, Iowa is a lower cost place to do business, which has been an advantage of us. It allows us to have competitive products, but also allows us to spend money in places that allows us to invest for the future, not just making sure that we're there to provide great salaries and benefits for our employees as well. So I think that cost advantage is super helpful. I also think the Iowa Midwest roots, we think gives us a Main Street perspective rather than a Wall Street perspective. And it's just natural for us to be here and focus on our customers day in and day out, being there for them as they go through financial volatility and making sure that we're there to help them through that. And then I think finally, which is super important, is this is a community that partners. And that partnership really helps a company drive success. As you're fully aware, our business leaders, our civic leaders, our government leaders all work together collaboratively to make sure that we're doing what we can do to make the community a great place to live and work, but also a business environment that's very pro-business to make sure that we have what we need to continue to drive growth going further.
Well, I think I just kind of got the sales pitch, but as we collectively work to grow our state's
Yeah.
population and make Iowa more competitive to attract not just individuals, but other companies, what would be your sales pitch to a different CEO who's considering moving their company and their workforce into Iowa?
Yeah, it's ultimately something I get involved in often, and it's a really easy answer. And it's a lot of things that we just talked about. Comes down to talent, different access to a great talent pool, which is bread and butter to what makes a company successful. But it also is that partnership. I really do think our government and our community is pro-business and has put in place regulations and incentives and just a great place that allows companies to grow and be innovative. Ultimately, I'd also say it's the quality of life. And whether it be a CEO I'm trying to convince to move their business here, or it's an executive I'm trying to attract here, ultimately, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to attract families. And ultimately, that's going to help the community be strong, but also continue to allow us to attract and retain other companies as well.
Yeah. And speaking as an outsider looking in at Principal, it's clear to me that the characteristics Principal values most are things like service, integrity, trust, and doing what's right, whether that's for your customers or for the communities that you operate in. How do you maintain those core values throughout the organization? And why is that so important as a leader to live up to these points every day?
Well, you touched on at least the aspects of all of our core values. So we have four that are front and center in everything that we do. It's start with the customer, do what's right, own what's next, and invest for the future. And ultimately, that's foundational of how we make decisions. It's foundational of how we attract and retain talent. It's a key component when I select talent. It's very important that the individuals that we attract not just have skills that make them be additive to the organization, but they have to be a cultural fit that will not only abide by those core values, but be a role model on those on a day-to-day basis. It's also really important how we assess our talent. And again, it's not just what work you do, but it's how you do the work. And one of the things I'm really, really proud of is we've been on Ethisphere's World's Most Ethical Companies for 15 years. I'll actually be in Atlanta next month to receive that award. And again, that's more important to me than any of the other awards that we get on a daily basis. And then I think foundational why it's important is if you think about financial services, it's a business of trust, right? We get money from our customers, and in many times it's a promise, and many times they're not going to see us actually deliver on those promises for what could be decades. And so it's really important that we're taking that seriously. And ultimately, our reputation is really going to stand on our ability to stand by those promises over a long period of time.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you brought up earlier, talking about partnership and community engagement. Principal has long been a leading corporate partner in so many quality of life initiatives throughout our state and throughout the central Iowa region where you're obviously headquartered. Examples include the Principal Charity Classic Golf Tournament, the Principal River Walk in downtown Des Moines. Why is it important for a company like Principal to go above and beyond in supporting these types of community-based initiatives? And why should other companies in our state and in our region follow your lead?
Yeah, so this will be our 20th anniversary of the Principal Charity Classic. And as you know, that tournament is not about golf. Obviously, golf is what brings the golfers here, what brings a lot of people here, but ultimately it's about giving back to the community and millions of dollars that we've funneled back into the community. And I think it comes back to Ultimately, having a vibrant community is good for people, it's good for business, and it's good for our future. And we have a responsibility as a company here, but also a responsibility that we talk about with my executive team is that it's a responsibility we don't take lightly, because if we're not going to be out there leading the charge, it's not going to allow other people to also step up and lead the charge as well. And so ultimately, we want to make sure that we have a vibrant community, because that's what first and foremost allows us to attract and retain top talent. If we don't have a community that we're proud to be living in, it's going to be really hard for us to sell that to people that we want to work here, intern here, come back to work here full time. And so ultimately, it is what helps us be a successful company, and it allows us to continue to be committed to having our headquarters here in Des Moines.
Yeah. I want to switch topics and get some perspectives from you around artificial intelligence. I think back to our last Iowa Business Council board meeting, and you shared some perspectives about how you and your team are viewing AI. And those comments have honestly really stuck with me and stuck with a lot of our board members, quite honestly. You shared about the importance of AI being applied to every job and how it can make people better at their job, to be more efficient, to be more effective. And you also mentioned how you're embarking on trainings and upskilling programs for your workforce literally around the world to provide them the tools and tactics so that they can appropriately harness the potential of AI into their daily work activities. Could you expand on some of these programs that you guys are embarking on at Principal?
Yeah, Joe. So I came into this role, 14 months ago. And, you get asked a lot of what's going to be your focus for the first year. And it was really natural for me to have AI be part of that focus. Technology is critical to everything we do every single day. It's always been that way. But AI is a little bit different in that it has the ability to pretty much impact every person's role, and regardless of what function or discipline they're in. And so, really, what our focus in 2025 was not just to continue to find business value from AI, but it was really important for me to make sure that we were providing our employees with the tools to understand how AI worked, how we were going to use it responsibly, and how they could embed it into what they do each and every day. I think AI is a capability that no company can ignore. And ultimately, it was important for me to give that foundational literacy to our employees. A mantra, and it's a little bit trite, is to say you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone that has embraced AI. And so we started in all 2025, and we actually delivered foundational AI literacy to all 19,000 of our employees. And that was, depending on the role, probably 4 to 8 hours of training. And we started with my executive team and ultimately worked it down through the organization. And, just some stats that I think is pretty telling of the impact is we started the year with about 800 people that had access to our AI tools. And we ended the year with about 17,000 of them having access to the tools. And about 8 to 9,000 of them are using them every single day. And so from that perspective, we're starting to see how they're embedding it into everything that they've done, very bottoms up driven. And then top down, we've had about 100 use cases that we've implemented across the organization, and are really focusing on helping that serve our customers better, but also provide business value as well. In 2026, we're going to build on that. One of the things we've now done is it's embedded in all new employee hiring, training. And ultimately, we're going to get more specialized in 2026. And so instead of broad-based training, we're going to do persona training with really 4 or 5 different personas, whether that be for leaders, whether that be for IT, whether it be for operations, audit, risk, compliance, marketing, communications. There'll be about 5 different personas where people can go a little bit deeper in how AI can be more relevant to their day-to-day job. And really trying to make sure that it becomes part of everything we do. And ultimately, we're taking advantage of it in a way that's responsible, but also impactful for our customers.
So you led me right into this next question. You talked about how your entire executive team is taking the training, using the tool. Would you mind sharing some examples of how you're currently using AI to help your daily work?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm trying to make it a habit. So I'm trying to make it a habit that every day, personally and professionally, I'm using AI. And so you think of things of just preparing for meetings, preparing for decisions. I can use it to summarize information, whether it be market trends, whether it be reports, whether it be briefing materials. I use it to even think through strategy questions of just poking a question out there to say, we're thinking of doing this. Can I pressure test it? How should a Fortune 500 company be thinking about this? I think we all can use it more from a communication tool, whether it's drafting answers for things like this that I can then refine, or ultimately summarizing feedback I've received from others. And then I'd say my first and foremost, I need to be a role model. And so I find myself multiple times a day in settings with people. And I just ask, how are they using AI to help in this situation that they're telling me about? And I'd say early in the year, it was a little bit like, I had horns on my head and they didn't know the answers to that. And ultimately, it's starting to create more of a bottom up environment. First of all, they know it's an expectation. But secondly, they're starting to really see how it can be impactful in how they approach their day-to-day job. We have champions across the organization that are really helping to drive this. But again, it comes back to you personally have to commit to figuring out how to use it.
Yeah. I want to get back to the notion around talent. We spend a lot of time, as you well know, at our Iowa Business Council quarterly meetings talking about creating a thriving workforce talent pipeline in our state. Principal has long been active in partnering with K through 12 districts and higher education on opportunities, whether that's through internships or experiences through great programs like IJAG, for example.
Yep.
What would you tell other businesses to do to get started in this space?
Yeah, there's a get started and then it's embedding it in everything you do, right? Ultimately having great internship programs. We find so much success in getting people that have tried us at an internship. They're the ones that are raising their hand to come back for full-time experience. And so we're a talent company, right? We don't have any physical thing that we're selling. And so core to core to our success is making sure we're able to attract and retain and develop top talent. And we think that starts well before someone is ready to apply for the job. And so that's why we have been focused both as a company, but also on making opportunities available for our employees to get involved with schools, to get involved with higher education and programs like IJAG that you mentioned as well. And, one, I think it's fulfilling for our employees if they can do that. But ultimately, we do think it helps drive ultimately talent that we can tap into as well. And we've done that broadly, but we've also done it in really focus areas. For us, STEM is obviously a huge focus area of the people that we hire. And so how can we work with K through 12 districts to make sure that they have the programs that are generating people that are interested in those fields that ultimately will go on to be great employees for the future? As far as advice, my first advice is to start small and then build upon it. I think sometimes people try to make it bigger than it really is. But ultimately, if you can pick a school or pick a program and see how you can partner with them and get your employees involved as well. I think the other one is making sure it's meaningful and hands-on. I think I even think of, the Apex program out in Waukee. They have a number of work strands that we can get involved in. But if we can give students exposure to real life projects and real problems to solve. And for some of these individuals that we're working with, and IJAG is example, even just giving them access to what a business environment looks like, how can we help them with thinking through career opportunities? Those are all rewarding opportunities as well. And I think the last one is making sure you're thinking long term, right? You might not see the payoff tomorrow, but if you stay at it, ultimately it's going to allow us to prepare that next generation of top talent and ultimately helping our companies continue to be successful here.
They're great comments. And staying on this theme of labor force and perspectives in the labor force, things are obviously changing very, very quickly. As you think about the future workforce at Principal, what are the skills that are most important for the positions you are looking to hire into the future?
Yeah, and this links back probably a little bit to the AI piece as well. And you can't pick up a newspaper any day and it's trying to predict what are the jobs of the future. And, you know, I'm not a believer that half the US population is going to be unemployed. So I do think it's going to be a morphing of skills and how this evolves over time. But ultimately, you know, there are hard skills that are going to be important. But I think more and more, and we've stressed this for decades, it's what you put around those hard skills that really set people apart. So it's those soft skills, you know, whether it be collaboration, whether it be teamwork, whether it be how you work together with each other. I think critical thinking skills is super important. Curiosity, resiliency. You know, one of the things I've really talked about is, you know, people try to focus on their strengths, and I think that's really important on, especially on hard skills. But I think on soft skills, you really got to focus on some of your weaknesses and making sure that you're developing those skills, probably not to make them a strength, but to make them not derailing from an overall perspective. And so, you know, whether it's in high school or when I talk to college students, it's all about how do you hone those leadership skills, communication skills, critical thinking skills, and ultimately going outside your comfort zone to connect dots to be able to really put things together and come out with ultimately a skill set that employers are really going to need and gravitate to as we move forward.
Yeah, great points there. Okay, so our last set of questions, we've come to the lightning round, so to speak. Hard-hitting questions are a bit more personal,
Yeah.
but I think people are really interested in how leaders, you know, top executives, Fortune 250 executives like yourself, structure their day, channel their intake of industry news, and how you generally stay on top of everything while also engaging in things outside the office. So let's start off with your ideal morning routine. When do you get to the office? How do you structure your morning in a way that leads to a successful day for Deanna?
So the first thing I would say, I am vastly different than my predecessor. So my predecessor used to get to the office at 4:45 or earlier. I am not a morning person. This went back to when I was in college. My first class would be optimal if it started at noon, and I'd love to go till midnight, 1, 2 o'clock. Obviously, I don't work at a noon on job, and so I have to get here a little earlier than that. You know, I'd love to, you know, roll in 7:30-ish or so, have an hour to really kind of review, plan for the day, ultimately focus, and ultimately then get started. I'm a coffee drinker, so that's part of my morning start as well. But then, you know, very willing to work all hours if needed to do what I need to do, but definitely not a morning person.
Sure. So there's so much information right now in this day and age. So how do you stay informed on the news or topics, either specific to your industry or your business, but also the community, and how do you fit that consumption into your day so that you stay ahead of everything?
So first of all, I think it's important that I prioritize that, right? Because it's so important that I have an external view, not just an internal view. I am playing with the idea of using an agentic AI to create an agent that will ultimately tap into all of my sources and summarize that for me on a daily or a weekly basis. So more to come on if I'm able to do that. You know, I ultimately receive lots of summaries. I proactively, you know, read the Financial Times, reads the Wall Street Journal, read Fortune. I do daily read the Des Moines Register just to keep up on the local news as well. And the great thing about the internet is you can get summaries very, very quick of those and then go deeper when something interests you and you need to. I also have colleagues and staff that love to highlight things that would be important, and making sure I'm spending time with that as well. But, you know, it comes back to you have to figure out the right ways to do that. Because again, it's you got to be able to marry that external perspective, and especially because, you know, many of our customers are impacted by whether it be the markets or the global environment. Making sure we have that perspective is important as well.
Yeah. So I've heard you're a big reader. What book are you currently reading, or what have you recently finished that you'd recommend to people?
So people love to find out what business books I'm reading. I'm actually a fiction reader. I have a lot of time, during the day and for my job to read nonfiction things. So I like historical fiction. And so I just finished over the weekend Big Lies in a Small Town by Diane Chamberlain. But two others that I've been recommending to a lot of people is Women, sorry, and The Winemaker's Wife. And so those are both historical fiction. All three of those are historical fiction. And it just gives me the opportunity to get my mind off the day to day and hopefully make me more refreshed when I come back to work after it.
Yeah, that's great. And are you binge watching anything on Netflix that you'd also like to recommend or on any other platform?
So I have two, both Apple TV right now. So Shrinking, the
Mhm.
series, and then Drops of God just released their second season. That one is one, if you haven't watched it, it's intriguing because you can't multitask when you watch it because you're shaking your head, Joe. So if you
Yeah,
watch, yep,
yeah,
so it's in Japanese, it's in French, and it's in English. So you have to be watching the subtitles, which is nice because it's so easy to multitask when you're binge watching and ultimately having the ability to kind of shut everything off and really focus on something is
right.
actually fun.
Can't watch your phone, watch that show. You can't fold laundry and watch
You
that show.
can't,
Gotta be
otherwise you got to
into it.
back up and watch it again. So
That's good. Um, what is the most important thing a leader can do in today's world, in your opinion?
I come back to that leadership is personal. And so to me, taking the time and prioritizing getting to know your team on a personal basis as well as a professional basis. And that lets you to connect, but it also gets you to understand what makes them tick, what's important to them, and ultimately how can you work with them to not only have a great professional experience, but also have a great life as well. And so I think prioritizing the personal aspect of leadership is really, really important. I also think you have to be authentic. And so you can't try to be someone else. And I've, took over roles from other people, and I think it's natural to try to say, how can I do it like that person? And I've learned over and over again that if you're not authentic and doing it, what works for you, it's not going to be successful. And then it gets back to this first one, but I think it's super important to connect with employees throughout your organization. That takes time, that takes effort, but they're your future. And so, how do you spend time making sure you know how they're feeling about things, and ultimately what you can do as an employer to continue to resonate with them and how they think about their career?
Yeah, that's well said. So, last question. What makes you optimistic about Iowa's future?
Yeah, I think it comes back to we have all the ingredients to continue to be great. So if you think about talent, you think about great businesses, you think about a supportive and a collaborative environment. Joe, you're key to that in the Iowa Business Council, and there's a number of other organizations where we do that as well. And again, that collaboration is going to allow us to continue to have a community throughout Iowa that allows us to be successful and really attract and retain talent. I come back to our pro-business government. I come back to just all the momentum that we have as we focus on things that continue to make us great. And I think that just makes me optimistic, not just about today, but how we can continue to be successful in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Deanna Strable, President, Chief Executive Officer of Principal Financial Group. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your service on the Iowa Business Council and for all you do for the great state of Iowa and beyond. So thank you so much for being with us, Deanna.
Thanks, Joe. It's great talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you.